founder and your today's host. So, if you're not familiar with our work, LunART is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to celebrating and showcasing women's creativity in the arts. And this specific series, live series, is designed to explore many facets of women in the arts by bringing outstanding guest speakers and artists and engaging in discussion and Q&As in the end. So with that said, if you have any questions for our fantastic guest today, please feel free to type them in a chat on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll make sure to get to them by the end of this show. So live events, LunART's live events are sponsored and produced by Microton Media. So thank you so much, Microton Media, and thank you, Dave Alcorn, for all your awesome work behind the scenes. And today, my friends, you're in for a special treat. We have our guest, Allison Loggins-Hull. She's a performer, a composer, a producer, and a member of a trailblazing duo, Flutronix. So Allison, welcome to LunART Live.
Hi, thank you, Eva. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Today, I'm doing pretty good, actually. Feeling good. I'm happy the weekend is almost here and, the week is almost over. So.
But from what you told me right before we started this session, you have a pretty packed schedule today, right?
I do. And, that's fine. I'm happy to be busy and to be working. The Zoom thing is challenging to do all week long because, I'm also teaching and things like that. But, I'm still grateful for the opportunities that are coming my way. So.
Nice. Well, I'm really grateful and thankful that you are here with us today and you took some time off of your busy schedule
Yeah,
to talk to us.
mm-hmm.
So your creative life is so rich and interesting and unique. And you're famous now, but I would really like to go back to your beginnings and, how did you start even with music and why flute as your expressive channel? And, can you talk us a little bit through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a house that often had music playing and often had music playing quite loudly. My dad had a very extensive and eclectic record collection. So music was just like, an everyday, almost constant thing, when I was growing up. And even outside of my home, I have other family members who are also great lovers of music. And, we went to concerts and all kinds of things. So it's just always been a part of my life. And when I was about 9 years old, I approached my mom and I was like, I really want to play an instrument. I think I want to play the flute. And I was drawn to the flute because there was a very specific record that my dad would play by Hubert Laws, The Rite of Spring. And Hubert Laws's Rite of Spring album. It's inspired by The Rite of Spring, but okay. Everyone should listen to it if you're not already familiar with it. But for whatever reason, his playing and his sound just really spoke to me. I really felt like the flute, and I still feel this way, is very similar to the human voice, not just in production, but in the way that it resonates, with the listener. And I just really loved it. I just really loved the sound. So I started asking my mom when I was in 4th grade, didn't get to do it that year. And then we lived in Chicago. My whole family's from Chicago. We moved from Chicago to the East Coast to New York. And that year in 5th grade, I was able to start. And I started through my school's band program. So I have, public school music education to thank for my start on the flute. And I just loved it. I just, something just really clicked with me. Like as soon as I started playing, I was the type of kid where no one had to tell me to practice. It was just something that I just loved doing. I loved like trying to figure things out by ear. I loved, playing along with music on the radio, doing band at school, doing anything I really could, to play. And it got to a point where, all of my teachers, my music teachers, and, my parents as well, like realized that this was something that really, meant a lot to me and that I had a talent for. But I didn't start taking private lessons until I was about, I think 15 years old, actually, which is kind of late compared to a lot of my peers and colleagues. So just up until then, I was pretty much self-taught and just had like, school bands and, the help from my band directors and things like that. But none of them were flutists. A lot of them had like brass instrument backgrounds and what have you, and could kind of play the flute, but
Yeah.
so it got to the point definitely where I had a teacher who was like, you really need to like, get some lessons and, get serious. And I didn't really know anything about that world. It was very new to me. My parents didn't know much about that. So I had started taking lessons with a woman named Melissa Sweet, who was in Socrates, New York. And then she encouraged me to apply for a pre-college program at Mannes in New York City, at the Mannes College of Music. So I auditioned for that, and then I started studying there when I was 16 and working with Mary Bartow, who is still there. And she she whooped me into some serious shape, because I was a kid who like clearly had an ear for music and a passion for music, but I had developed a lot of bad habits because I didn't have that that guidance for many years. So there was a lot of things I had to like unlearn and undo, and I was now in an environment where there were a lot of there were other people, young people my age, who were just as serious, who had been doing music at a very high level for a very long time. And I realized like, oh my goodness, like, whoa, I need to get cracking. So, so for the next 2 years, I was just really trying to, I felt like I had to do like a lot of kind of catch up in a lot of ways, so it was pretty intense. And then I graduated, and I went on to study with Tara Helen O'Connor at the Purchase Conservatory at SUNY Purchase. And this is another person who greatly changed my life. I mean, she took me, my time with her was when I, went from being someone who just like loved playing flute, loved doing music, to someone who was, more of an artist, like she really like fostered that maturity in me. And she's such an amazing musician and a brilliant teacher. I mean, I feel like I just owe her so much. So I worked with her. And well, you just wanted to know the beginning. I'm kind of just like going down.
Oh no, I love it.
Sorry.
No, I love it because I think what you just said and what your kind of background is at home like explains perfectly who you are today, because you have these elements of classical training and like amazing flutist, like great technique, everything is there. But I have a feeling that all that inspiration and that compositional side of your personality, you're drawing actually from your roots and from your home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you can really feel, and our audience will hear that once we play some of your works. But when I wanted to ask you, when did you start composing? And was that, you said that you were like, oh, playing along and like, kind of playing by ear. But when were you like, oh, seriously, I'm going to compose now?
Yeah. So maybe I didn't get too off track just now, because I was just getting to the point where that kind of came into the picture. So after I finished my my undergrad working with Tara, I was totally going to go down the typical flute student path. I was auditioning for a performance degree for graduate school, and I was like kind of being groomed for that, more or less. And I really cannot explain what would happen, but something just instinctually like told me that I needed to take some time off to figure some things out, and to really think about like, all right, what are we doing with this music? Like what do we want life to look like 10 years from now? Like, how do we want to, what's the purpose? Like, who's the audience that we're trying to reach? What are we trying to say? And by we, I mean me. But these were like the kind of questions that I couldn't really answer. So I felt like I needed to before going straight into a graduate program. I needed to take the time to think about that and figure it out. And it was hard because I couldn't really explain. I didn't have a plan. I couldn't say like, okay, I'm not going to go to this really prestigious graduate school and study with this amazing teacher because I'm going to do this instead. It was like, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't know. You know what I mean? So it was like, I felt like I kind of sounded flaky a little bit, and I was worried I was like disappointing all these people who had like, invested so much time and energy into me and into my flute playing and what have you. So it was a little scary and also a little like depressing at times because I just, I had this feeling, but I didn't know where anything was going or what I was doing, or if I had just made like the worst mistake ever, but nonetheless, I took that time and I was living in Brooklyn, New York at the time. And I decided, I'm in the city, let me try to just like gig. Let me see what's out there and not just do like classical stuff, but, just be like, hey, I'm a flutist. Do you need a flute like for whatever and see what happens? So there was some weird things that I did. I played, there was like a rock orchestra that I played with for a little bit. And we would play in like dive bars and like really like grungy places. And, and then I also did a lot of work with like singer songwriters or like session work, like working with like producers and things like that. And this, this just kind of like introduced me to a whole another world of possibilities in music. So one day I got this gig and I was playing with a, singer songwriter type artist. And in the middle of the set, she was like, okay, I want you to take a solo for this song. And I was like, what? Like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like,
where's the score?
Right. She's take a solo. And I'm like, oh my God, she wants me to improvise something. And I went into like a little bit of a panic mode because I went to a music conservatory, that's rooted in like classical pedagogy. There's no, you don't learn how to improvise. You learn how to interpret the works of the masters and how to play your instrument like to the best of your ability, but improvisation is almost in some circles like a dirty word. So, I'm standing there and I'm like thinking, all these thoughts are right in my head, like, oh my God, I'm gonna like make a fool out of myself, all these things. So I just told myself, I was like, all right, okay, you know how to use your ears, you have good musical instincts, you took years and years of theory and ear training, like it can't be that hard, like just listen and just go with it. I tried to give myself a little 5-second pep talk because it was almost time to go. And I did it and it was okay. It was pretty simple and probably not the most amazing thing that anyone ever heard, but like, all right. So I left that situation feeling like I need to work on that because if that happens again, I need to be ready. You know what I'm saying? And why haven't I ever really seriously tried that since I was little? Because when I first started playing, I would do things like that. And it's like I kind of like lost sight of that, once I got really into like training mode, So I started working on that and, working on improvisation. And after a while, I would come up with some things that I really liked, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this little, theme or idea that I came up with. I'm going to write it down. And then I just like worked on like developing it. And then the next thing I was like, oh, this is like a piece of music, actually.
Love it.
And they sat back and I was like, this is actually kind of cool. I want to keep like practicing this and trying this out and like see what I can do. So after a while, I had a few things that I had written, obviously for flute, because it was just me. Again, I was just like living in Brooklyn, confused. So I did lots of things that like included like loops, and like layering of my own like tracks and things like that. And I started working with electronics. And at the time, I did not have very sophisticated technology. Like I was working with like GarageBand,
Right.
And again, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I came up with a few things. And I started putting it out there on MySpace, which at the time was a thing that people used, like a social media
I
thing.
remember that time.
Do you remember? It's so funny because when I say that to like college classes, sometimes and they're like, what's that MySpace that you speak of? And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, so I put some music out there. And that's how Nathalie found me. Nathalie, my partner in Flutronix, Nathalie Joachim. And that started the beginning of that whole journey. But that's essentially how the composing started. And then I've just been doing it ever since.
That's amazing and so inspiring. And I would just want to applaud you for, stopping after your undergrad and recognizing that you need that time. And I can only imagine how scary it was, because you're suddenly, going out of the canon, right? You do your undergrad, you do your master's. Some people do go straight to doctorate. You're 26, you have doctorate. You have no idea what to do in the real world, who you are actually, right? You need that time to rediscover or reimagine yourself. And that's exactly what you do. I mean, I truly believe that part made you who you are now, made you stronger, and you learned so many skills in that short period of time, right? And
yeah, I mean, 100%, in retrospect, I absolutely agree with you, and this is something that I tell my own students even, or any kind of young person that comes to me for advice. I'm like, you know, don't feel bad if you need to take some time, you know what I mean, to think about your life, because and the other thing is like, all this pressure to just like go straight to school and stay in school. School costs money. It
yeah,
costs a lot of money, at least in the United States anyway, So
absolutely.
you can really have to take that seriously. And I think you have to realize, like, if you don't have the money, you will eventually have to pay it back. And you should really, I think, spend the time to really think about what you're doing and what you're investing in, because that's
Right. Don't be on an autopilot. That's what I noticed in
yeah.
so many kids. It's like, oh, this is the path. This is what I was told. This is what my role model of whatever instrument we're talking about or person is. And then that's what I should follow. But we're all different and we have different stories,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we need to find that unique voice. And that's exactly what you did. And I'm glad you mentioned Flutronix, because that was my next question.
Yeah.
So for the people that really don't know who you are, so you're like a flute duo and you're doing a really cool thing. And there is a quote that I will actually read right now. It's from the Wall Street Journal that said that Flutronic has a unique blend of classical music, hip hop, electronic programming, and soulful vocals, reminiscent of neo-R&B stars like Erykah Badu. So I'm Erykah Badu. Is that how you pronounce her name? That's how I would.
Erykah Badu. Yeah.
She is phenomenal. I think she's one of my favorite vocalists ever. I'm so in love with that woman and what she does.
Yeah, she's brilliant. I love her too.
So how long? So what was the year when you guys started working together, you and Nathalie?
So that year that Nathalie reached out to me on MySpace, I want to say it was 2008 or 7. It's a little bit of a blur at this point. Her and I, we like go back and forth. But I want to make, it was probably actually 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both, what's so funny about our coming together, and which I think is so mystical in a way, is that we were both kind of in a very similar place, in that we had finished undergrad. We had been going on this like very traditional kind of like trajectory in terms of like a flutist, and flute study and all that. And we had both like slammed the brakes, but also we're like, what now? What are we doing? And kind of discovering this creative side that we hadn't really tapped into so much. And we were also both experimenting with electronics. Right. And what's so weird about that is, like, here we are, these two girls, right? These two flutists who came up in the tri-state area around this at the same time, really. You know what I mean? We have a lot of mutual friends. Mm-hmm. But we never met each other before that point, which is like, the odds of that are actually really quite small, because I mean, to this day, I still have tons of colleagues that I came up with. It's a small network, right. Especially when you play the same instrument. So that was really weird. So, I firmly believe to my core that happened for a reason, that we came together when we did, that we were both kind of in this like uncertain place, but also like on tapping into something at the same time. So she reached out to me. She liked my music. You know, she said, hey, I'm a flutist. I'm also in Brooklyn and I'm also working with electronics. And like, why don't we know each other? And I was like, yeah, why don't we know each other? Obviously we should know each other. You know, this is so weird. So it was like, yeah, let's get to know each other. So I invited her over to my apartment. And she actually like we lived both up in Brooklyn, but she literally lived 5 blocks away. So she's also my neighbor. Okay. Like, it's just so crazy. So anyway, so she comes over and, you know, we totally hit it off. You know, we talked, we shared each other's stories. You know, we saw that there were so many parallels, but we also were very like-minded in other ways. You know, we're both super ambitious, very hardworking. You know, we just vibed on like every level, really. So we just immediately like started working like that day. We were like, we're working together, doing this thing, which is so crazy when I think about it now. That was most likely in 2000. What did I say? 7?
Yeah.
And it's 2021 now, you know, which is like crazy. And we've been going ever since that first day that we met.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really bananas. So we decided, okay, we're going to do what we do, which is we play flute, we write music, and we use electronics, and we're going to call ourselves Flutronix because that seems to be self-explanatory, you know? Yeah. And the rest is like truly history. Yeah.
I love it. So let's hear. I chose one video. It's Sweet Dreams. It's your arrangement, and I love it. This is your official video, and I absolutely love it. So I want our audiences to see it.
Okay.
So let's go to this.
Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? Traveled the world in the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be of you. Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? I traveled the world in the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for something. Whoa, sweet dreams, sweet dreams, sweet dreams.
Wow, that was amazing. And I love Annie Lennox. So thank you for doing this. So
Yeah.
this arrangement was part of your album 2.0. Is that correct?
Yes, 2.0. So 2.0 was our second full-length studio album.
Mhm.
That actually came out in 2014. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't said that out loud in in a while, but
Time
um,
flies.
yeah, and at the time anyway, we were really interested in like taking a stab at doing, a cover of something that, a song that people love, but that would really fit into our sound world,
Mhm.
and we listened to like so many different things to like try to figure it out. And then like we were, Sweet Dreams, and like if you hear the original, I mean, it's a classic song, like and so many people have covered it, but still it just kind of was like, you know what, we can totally like Flutronicize this one.
Oh
So
yeah. And you did. You did it.
yeah, so it was fun. That, for sure, it's,
So
it was a fun project for us.
so you also have original music in that album, right?
Yeah, that's the only cover. Everything else,
Okay.
actually, I mean, that's the only cover we've ever done. Everything else we do is either we write together, or Natalie wrote it, or I wrote it.
Right, right. And then this was an album that you actually signed a contract with a Japanese publishing company. Is
Yeah.
that
So
part of
yeah.
uh-huh.
So that album really took us on a journey we self-released it here in the States, and we actually did a Kickstarter campaign to fund it. And in retrospect, we got really lucky because we did it at a crazy time. We did it right around the holidays, and everybody around the holidays is like overspent. You know what you know what I mean? So, but and we had this very ambitious goal of $20,000 at the time. Felt like an enormous amount. And Nathalie, during the fundraiser, was actually in Japan because she was touring with an orchestra out there.
Mhm.
So I would be like campaigning because we were basically working 24 hours because of the time zone difference. So I
Mhm.
would be working on the campaign like, all day here in the States, and then she would do it in Japan, like take over. So it would be like an all day kind of thing. So it was a lot, but we were able to get funded. We had a successful campaign, and then Natalie had just made some contacts while she was out in Japan, and was able to talk about our work with some, music industry people out there, and a label called Village Again Records. They have a lot of like American jazz artists and like songwriters and things like that. And it's a very eclectic roster of artists that they have. They were interested, so they license basically the album to to their market to their label. So there's a Japanese version out there. I mean, it's still us. There's not Japanese like
Right, right.
lyrics or anything, but like all the titles and everything are like translated in Japanese, which was kind of cool. And then we went out there and did a little bit of like a promotional tour, and we spoke with lots of like Japanese radio stations and did like interviews and stuff like that, and performances. So it was a lot of fun. It was a good time.
So you had actually a great marketing campaign for your tour in Japan,
Yeah.
right? Can you tell us? I want to play this video. It's called Candy Candy, but can you
Yeah.
just give us a little bit of an intro to that? And I just want yeah, go ahead, and then
Yeah. So one of the one of the people we were working with out in Japan, in an effort to promote the record, they were like, "Oh, you guys should it'd be really a good idea if you did a cover of a J-pop song, something that the Japanese audience is like familiar with,
Mhm.
And we were like, we don't know any J-pop, like what, like what. I don't even know where to start with that. So she sent us a few suggestions, and let us know about a few like popular artists out there. And after a lot of like searching, we found this song called Candy Candy, and it's by an artist named Kiari Pamu, who's like huge in Japan. Like she's like a mega Japanese J-pop star. And this song Candy Candy that she did was huge as well. Like like think like billions of listens, like that kind of thing. So we did a version of it. Now, mind you, we really don't know what the song's about, other than candy, because we don't speak Japanese. And well, I mean, we saw the video. We know it's a harmless song. You know, we know it's a playful song, and it's so with that in mind, we just for the verses we just made like flute instrumentals. And for the chorus, we kept the chorus the same, which is just like candy, candy, which you'll hear. So it was definitely something we had never done before, definitely a different type of experience. But it was really well received, actually, to the Japanese audience. And, again, it was just a lot of fun to do. So yeah, we have our own version of a J-pop song.
Yeah, so let's hear it. And I just want to say, I really wanted to take the original excerpt and put it in, but I was not really sure about the copyright and all of that.
Yes.
So we will have a song for you in a chat from YouTube, so you can hear the original, but here is Flutronix version. That was so much fun. I absolutely love it. And I love how you transformed that song. I mean, you did an arrangement that it's clearly your sound. And
Thank
it's
you.
awesome. So yeah. So I was just wondering, did she hear it? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. You mean Carrie from you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. No.
Oh,
It would be
but
fun if she did, but
that's great. So let's flash forward a little bit, and let's go, to 2020 year, a year of so many challenges on so
Hmm,
many
hmm,
levels. And
mhm.
you're used to touring and going around and playing concerts, and then suddenly 2020, as we know, everything stopped, and you're just like glued to this screen.
Mhm.
um and I'm sure, with your creativity and with your energy, you were probably looking into ways to like still express yourself and like voice yourself. So how did you find your voice through all this, and what projects have you been working on that were like energizing you and giving you, that sense of hope and
Sure.
light?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because we've been kind of like revisiting Flutronix work that comes from a really like distinct era for me, and I think Natalie can say the same thing too. Um, we were when we first started out, we were younger, and it was all we were like exploring this side of ourselves, and I think a lot of the music, had this was fun. I mean, we had this real kind of like fun, playful thing about our music, and I mean, we still do today, and I think our personalities like still reflect that. We're still who we are, but definitely the the tone of the compositions, I think, has really evolved, and our process and how we work has really evolved, and the projects that we take on have really changed in nature too. Like a lot of things have changed, which is great. I'm so thrilled with the way that her and I both have like just grown, both as individuals but also as duo partners and business partners and all these things.
Mhm.
Um, so in recent years, probably since like 2016, that's when I got my first commission. My friend Amanda Gukin, who's a cellist,
Mhm.
she produced this project, and she still has this project and new iterations of it called Forward Music Project, which is has a commissioning initiative of working with women composers or women identifying composers who address like a women's issue or story or experience. So it's very women centered. And the piece that I wrote for her, it was my first, not only was it my first commission, I mean, I had been writing for Flutronix, for years now at that point. So my music was definitely out there, and Flutronix music was definitely out there. But I had never received a commission before, and it was for cello, So it was an opportunity to really kind of like, show my chops in other writing for other instruments, and just like exploring a whole new kind of process by taking on a very like specific thing, which is investigating a women's issue. And what I chose to focus on was child marriage and child brides. So it was a very intense project to work on, because the research that was involved with that was like very revealing to me. A lot of it was very disturbing. I'd say most of it was very disturbing, actually. And then I also really wanted to learn how to write well for the cello. Cello is an instrument that I've loved forever. It's one of those things where like, if I played something else, what would it be? Like probably the cello. I just think it's such a versatile, amazing, beautiful instrument. So I really wanted to, write something that was idiomatic for the cello, like, you know what I mean? And like felt good to a cellist. I try to write music for other people and other instruments that they can feel like they can really get their teeth into, because as a player myself, I know what that feels like. You know what I mean? Like when you have a piece of music and you're like, oh, this feels great. I can really nail it. Like, so that's what I wanted to do. So I did a lot of just kind of work on learning, orchestration, that kind of stuff, and writing for the instrument and workshopping it and And I've been doing, that work has just expanded since then. Since then I've gotten a variety of commissions, and I've been writing for a variety of instruments, and I've just been like loving it. And I'm really grateful that I haven't been like pigeonholed into just being able to write for flute. That's something that also was like important to me, because I love the entire orchestra. Like, as I mentioned before, like I grew up in a super musical household, and there's so many things that I love about music and sounds and textures and all these things. So since then I've been doing a lot of writing, and that has certainly increased since 2020, since the pandemic started. So I've been doing a lot of that, and I've been Flutronix. We have a number of new projects going on. We had a major project that was supposed to premiere in April 2020, but because of the pandemic, it's been postponed. But we embarked on this journey, this 2-year residency that we had at Carolina Performing Arts at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And that residency was in support of this work that we built. It's done. Called Discourse. And the idea for it came from a place where, Nathalie and I were both, we would have our weekly meetings and try to get work done. And we just were so distracted by current events and what was going on around us for a long time. It got to the point where it was just affecting our productivity, our creativity, and we were like, we got to figure out a way to channel this, because we're not getting anything done. But also clearly we need to respond to what's happening, or figure out how we can apply ourselves, to address it, or just face it, or something, or help. I don't know, but we got to do something, that kind of thing. So while we were brainstorming this, Carolina Performing Arts, they reached out to us, and we were like, well, actually we've been talking, and, this is how we're feeling, and we would love to do a project where we can kind of, engage the community, and, learn from people, hear people's stories, because it just felt like there was just none of that was happening in society at large. We were clearly not communicating with each other. We're clearly not understanding one another. We're thinking we're so entirely different, but not really, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, we're really not. So that was the birth of Discourse, this project. And we were down in North Carolina for over 2 years, and we spent time, shared bread, and did workshops with all kinds of organizations, one that works with homeless populations, one that works to preserve historically Black neighborhoods. We worked with an Indigenous population. We worked with students and faculty. So it was really across the board, and we really got to learn about the experience of that region, and people from that area, and people of all different walks of life too. So the music is a way to kind of tell their story, to share their story, and to hopefully encourage, discourse amongst ourselves and the audience and all that. So, we can really see that, everybody is a person, everybody has a story, and everybody's story is valid, So unfortunately we didn't get to premiere that, but hopefully we'll be able to do it next season. We'll see, life permitting. But we're also in the middle of developing an iteration of it with the University of Chicago. So this piece has really become more of a process, of a practice, right? So we aim to approach it the same way in Chicago, but of course the music is going to be different, because the stories are going to be different, and it's the kind of thing where, our goal is really to bring this process, this practice all over the country, kind of, you can imagine like a quilt of musical stories, across the country. So it's ambitious, but this is a long-term commitment of ours, and is totally demonstrative of that evolution that I was telling you about. This is a totally different way than how we were working when we put out our first album, which was in 2010. So
Yeah.
it's exciting. So we've been, developing these projects, behind the scenes, brainstorming things like that. We also just signed on to do a collaborative project with Third Coast Percussion, which is this awesome Grammy-winning percussion quartet based in Chicago. So that's gonna be a lot of fun because we both, if you heard Flutronix music, I'm sure you can tell we love drums, and percussion. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And as I mentioned, I have a lot of my own commissions as well as as an individual. And all this work has produced, a lot of scores. And Nathalie and I, we started our own publishing company a few years ago. So that's been doing really well. And, we continue to invest in that and, watch that grow. So yeah, thankfully I've been able to stay busy during this time and to stay inspired, thank God, and just, I'm just trying to stay focused on all of these things and, doing the work. So.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. And I would really love to play this piece next. It's Freedom School. It's actually part of your larger work, this discourse.
Yeah.
So really audience can hear exactly what you're describing and how you evolved and changed and how you try to reflect society and everything you feel. So yeah, let's take a listen.
We have forgotten why are we like we are? We have forgotten why are we like we are? We have forgotten why are we like we are? We have forgotten why, and Freedom School taught me that.
We have forgotten why. Why are we like we are? And Freedom School taught me that. We're the only people on the planet that's constitutional people. The Constitution made us. We don't know that. Most of our people don't know that. Most of America don't know that. We have forgotten why. Why are we like we are? They don't know who they are. Simple as that. They need to go to Freedom School. We forgot about what got us where we are. Even unto this day, our people don't understand the significance of the Emancipation Proclamation. The only people on the planet that's constitutional people. The Constitution made us. We don't know that. Most of our people don't know that. Most of America don't know that.
We forgot about what got us where we are. Even unto this day, our people don't understand. The Constitution made us. We don't know that. Most of our people don't know that. Most of America don't know that. They need to go to freedom school.
That's my mission, is to make, especially our young people, know who they are.
Why
Well, thank you. Thank you, Allison. This was absolutely amazing. So tell us, where can people find more info about you, about your upcoming events, how they can get in touch with you, commission you?
Sure. So probably the easiest place to go is my website, which is AllisonLoggins.com, where I have, a calendar of all my upcoming events and contact information. And then I'm also all over social media, of course, Instagram, Loggins-Hull, Twitter, all those guys. And similarly with Flutronix, Flutronix.com is our website. And we're on all the social medias at Flutronix. So
nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, please get in touch with her. As you can tell, she's amazing. So we do have a couple of questions from our audiences.
Okay.
So what advice would you give to young artists that are seeking to find their own path?
Well, I mentioned earlier, try not to be afraid of taking time to figure yourself out. I think, it's a little controversial. And I think what the fear is, at least what I was told at the time, and this was a while ago, was that, I would stop practicing or I would get distracted by other things. I think, so you have to be honest with yourself, and ask yourself like, okay, I love music, but I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with it. But you still have to be honest and say, like, can I still be dedicated to my instrument or whatever it may be, my craft, while I'm figuring this out? Because, I had to work. I had to get a job. I worked as a maitre d' in New York City restaurants for years. Okay. So I had to juggle that with trying to, play gigs, practice, keeping my chops up. And also I started trying to compose too. So it was a lot, right? And it was hard. It wasn't easy, but I stayed committed to the art, through all that. So be honest with yourself. Like, can you handle that? Like, can you do that? You know what I mean? Because you might have to, unless you have like a trust fund or something. But a lot of us, you got to pay rent, especially when you're that age, right? You're on your own. But I think giving yourself that time to think about it and to explore different possibilities, definitely like try to, observe. And if you can, reach out to people who have done things that interest you. I think you'd be surprised like how many people are approachable, and learn from them, try to learn their story, see that it's possible. And just listen to your gut. I think that's so important. I think if you're questioning something, you need to stop, and say like, okay, what's going on here, and unpack that and learn and give yourself an opportunity to learn about yourself. It's guess what? It never ends. I'm still learning new things about myself like all the time, it's a journey. So I think it's important to, to acknowledge those feelings and those instincts first and foremost, and just try to stay as inspired as you can.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that wisdom. And I share a lot of it with you. Yeah. So there are two questions and I want to combine them. First, do you gig usually with one drummer that we saw in both of these videos? Is that always the same person? And then there's a question about the percussive effects and how do you produce them?
Sure. So Flutronix, depending on the program, we have a drummer. His name is Joe Blacks. He's phenomenal. You guys should check him out. He's worked with all kinds of amazing artists, and he is like a killer drummer. So definitely check him out. And fun fact, I've known Joe for, oh gosh, how old am I? I've known him for about 23 years. We went to high school together. So he's an old friend of mine as well, which is so special to me. So he's great. And otherwise, in the electronic tracks, we use either like samples or synthesized sounds using digital audio workstations. Like I use Logic. Nathalie works in Pro Tools, and a lot of those electronic beats that you heard were produced with her using Reason. And in Freedom School, some of those sounds were produced with a live synthesizer, although it was recorded in that instance. But when we perform it in concert, there's an actual synthesizer that we trigger. So we use toys.
Nice. Love it. One more last question, very quick one. What of your compositions are you most proud of?
Oh, wow. That's, usually the one that I just finished, because I try with each one to like push myself to get better, to be more curious, and I feel like I can safely say that I've gotten a lot better, throughout the years, and that's good. And I hope I continue to grow. I recently wrote this piece for an ensemble based in New York called Ensemble Pie. It's for a Pierrot ensemble, and I played flute on it actually in the concert that we recorded back in October, and I really had a really what can I say? I don't know, the process of writing that I really enjoyed. I really had to dig deep. I really had to dive into some intense material. A lot of it, well, all of it really involving the Black experience here in America. So there was a lot of like personal stuff going on. And I just really tried to, as I continue to try to do, like just push myself, try to, really stretch the language, I guess you could say. So I'd say, and the work that I'm doing with Flutronix in the past recent years, I'm super proud of. I think you can hear and see how much we have both like grown. And it's just, been an awesome experience writing music with someone also. I think that's very special. I don't think there's a lot of composers that actually co-write with someone. So, looking back and thinking about how much that has developed over the years, I'm like super proud of, and I'm really looking forward to the music that we're about to write. I think it's going to be, I know it's going to be some of the best work we've ever done. So yeah, I guess I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It's already 1 o'clock. Unfortunately, I wish we have like at least 2 hours more to chat with you. But I will make sure to bring you back, or maybe to bring you to Madison. Or maybe
That'd be great. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was absolute pleasure to get to know you and your work. And my friends, this is it for today. So I really hope you enjoyed it and you got inspired. There were so many actionable tips here. So please make sure to like LunART on all social media platforms, as well as Allison and Flutronix. And if you want to see more of this, make sure to go to our donate page, lunartfestival.org/donate, and help us keep arts alive. So we are preparing many exciting programs for the month of March. So make sure to go to our website and sign up for newsletter, and just like stay in tune and inform about all the awesomeness that is coming your way. With that, have great weekends. Allison, thank you once again. Absolute pleasure. And we will see you for LunART Live. Next episode is scheduled for Friday, March 26th, 12 p.m. Central Time, with fabulous Seraph Brass, all-woman brass ensemble. Awesome. So stay healthy, stay strong, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.